When I was on YT Jobs a little bit earlier, I stumbled upon this channel called Anime Regions. The thing about them that I found was interesting was that they were looking for editors, but at the same time, as soon as I gave them a quick glance, I seen that they had a strategy problem, not really much of an editing and consistency problem. So I'm about to use their channel as a teaching tool and show you 3 things that they're doing wrong that you might be doing too, especially if you're in the anime niche. One of the things that I realized immediately just scrolling through their feed was that they seem to have an identity packaging problem. And what I mean by that is that their video had 40K views 4 months ago. And they seem to try to replicate that same success on another video only 2 videos after. So let's go ahead and examine this packaging. Clearly, you have 2 redheads with the cleavage showing. So why is it that they had 2 different results? Well, my conclusion is pretty simple. One says wear headphones, where the other says here we go tsunderes. Clearly, one is more targeted towards a spicier, horny audience. Wear headphones. That kind of sounds like some Pornhub shit, right? But the other one is more vague. It's more targeted towards a type of anime trope, tsunderes, which for those who don't know is essentially women who act mad but really like you. That is the difference in thumbnail, but the main contributing factor, I think, to how these packaging differences affected the videos was that one is the top 10 spiciest anime everyone's watching secretly, whereas the other one is romance anime tropes we love. So the thing is, right? Of course, the spicy thumbnail is going to work for spicy anime. Of course, it's targeted towards more horny audience, more degenerates, etc., etc. So then that's cool. But the thing is, when you have a successful video about degeneracy and then try to copy the format for something about romance, that's like completely different archetypes. Realistically, right? Why is it that somebody interested in like fucking Pornhub is gonna watch something like a romantic comedy? They're probably not. Next up, I would say that their titling is unimaginative. And what I mean by that is that they have repeated elements like simply explained or ending explained in their title that honestly is more of a genre tag than something that should be in the title. It's not really differentiating itself from the massive pool of other content that is available. Now I have a question for you. If you watch a show or movie and you understand the story structure, the plot, etc., why should you care to click an explainer video except for maybe confirming the biases you already had about that story? And if you didn't watch that show slash movie, but the title of it or the thesis of it or the description of it was boring, or doesn't really describe something intriguing to you, it doesn't give you anything to want to click on, then why would you? The problem with these unimaginative titles is essentially they're basically limiting their audience down to people who didn't understand the story or want their biases confirmed about said story. And with an anime or show movie that is older, anything, any trending subject matter or media, if it's not really trending, you're basically just forcing that video to be an evergreen video with a slow trickle time, which although can be good for that video, if that's not the plan for that video, then what are you doing? Now check this out. Violet Evergarden simply explained why every letter feels like a love story, you ... First off, the title's too damn long because I'm not supposed to have it cut off. That's something that everybody should work on. But a big thing with that is it sounds clinical, boring. For me, what I would recommend to a lot of my clients or anybody in general is to try to customize the title to fit or for a broader audience and then have the content itself narrow it down in the intro, the hook, etc. Let's compare that to something like why every letter feels like a love story you can't finish, dash Violet Evergarden. What that is doing is essentially recontextualizing the exact same video, but we're doing it with a more emotional thesis first hook. In the comments down below, go ahead and answer for me. Do you think the first version or the second version is actually more enticing? Which one would you rather click? For me personally, I think the second one makes my brain buzz to life and makes me question, wait, what? Why? You know what I'm saying? I also noticed that with their script structure, particularly for their Violet Evergarden video that we just discussed, it's performative, not intentional. What I mean by that is essentially they're not really going into the video production with an idea in mind for who this video is for. And I believe that is a gigantic disconnect that a lot of creators, whether in anime or in other categories of media, need to learn about. Because the reality is that if you are not making content for somebody, you are making it for nobody. Now, I'm going to let the first few seconds of the video play out. I want you to listen to it. And when you come back to hear the version that I drafted up, I want you to tell me again in the comments down below, what do you think? Which one is more enticing to you and which one is going to get you to continue watching?
Violet Evergarden is the only anime in the world where the main character goes from a hollow soldier with no real concept of emotions to an anime Mother Teresa who really loves letters. But in the entirety of the series, there is a central mystery that moved the story in interesting ways, and that's the statue of Major Gilbert. Is he alive or not? And what is the real meaning behind the revelation we got at the end of the Violet Evergarden story? Let's finally talk about it. Now, before I go any further, you should know that the ending of the story goes beyond just anime, because this ending may have been the last thing some incredible artists ever created, so it's important we pay attention.
Now that you heard that one, I'm going to have you listen to my improved rough draft version. An emotionless child soldier, once retired from the battlefield, contemplates what I love you means and hopes to learn of human emotion through writing letters. That is Violet Evergarden. As melancholic as that is, it is reinforced by a real life tragedy with a released film becoming the last letter of the victim's legacy. But in the entirety of the series, there's a central mystery that moved the story in interesting ways. And that's the statue of Major Gilbert, if he's alive or not. And what is the real meaning behind the revelation we got at the end of the Violet Evergarden story? For me personally, and you might have felt this as well, I kind of thought that the anime Regent intro felt kind of long winded. And I'm presented with a lot of different plot points without a real through line. As a cold viewer, the script explains nothing about why the character goes from hollow soldier to anime Mother Teresa. Realistically, that joke probably could have been later on in the production. This might just be my own personal taste, but I am a big fan of show, don't tell. The joke could have earned its spot if it was actually given time to breathe as I learn about the character, why their situation is the way it is, and I'm introduced to their morality, their individuality, and allowed to come up with my own kind of conclusions about who this person might be ahead of this said joke. Again, this kind of leans back into the whole they didn't plan for an avatar for this. So it makes it hard for them to come to a conclusion like that. Currently, for me, it comes off as kind of forced and honestly cringe. Another thing that kind of threw me off and honestly pissed me off was that they only hinted at the tragedy that happened at the Kill Annie studio. That was an arson attack that happened, I believe, back in 2019. They brought it in to the story as if it was an afterthought. Like, oh, by the way, real people died. I don't believe for such a deep story, anime wise and real life contextualization wise, you should allow for it to be a footnote that kind of comes off as disrespectful to the people who created it, as well as kind of uninformed, more on the lines of you want to be liked with this Mother Teresa joke rather than tell a story that actually is meaningful and is going to be intriguing for your viewer. I think the biggest takeaway of this case study is that a lot of people make the mistake of making more content. And what you're doing is commoditizing your channel. You are making it so essentially you are the Chinese factory that produces a bunch of stuff quickly in mass, whereas there's other people making more quality content, Versace, Louis, etc. I know that they're not the best examples because they're honestly not the best in general, but you get my point. There's designer brands that people go to and they'll spend thousands more for and they'll have higher profit margins, whereas you will make content or you will have a product that you are sweatshopping away on and not allowing yourself the grace period to actually improve. When that occurs, you essentially, like these people, have to outsource to get more editors, because more editors equals more money in my pocket because of quantity. All that leads to is you editing more, uploading more, and changing the thumbnail color, but not really being able to realize what you're doing wrong that could make your channel better.